the time is now, and I'm gonna get.
Hey, I want you to listen to this.
Shawn, same to you. You've witnessed now these bubble setups, no fans. It's different. There's just no other way to explain it. As a fighter, those fans motivate you. They push you to the next level sometimes. We didn't have that for a while. Now we get it back.
Yeah, and it's funny. I fought last year in August and no fans. And you imagine between August and now we're in October. My dad practically since January, you got to figure out who you fighting, get back in the ring. You got to figure out who you fighting, get back in the ring. What about that Terence fight, you think? What about that Terence fight? I really ain't nobody I want to fight other than Terence. I don't know if we're going to get that fight. And if we do get that fight, we need to have that fight in front of fans. We can't just have that fight in a room full of nobodies. And, yeah, we'll sell it on pay-per-view, but it's not the same. And so my dad, he was pushing me to get in the ring with someone else. This man right here to my right, I consider to be the next best thing in the world to Errol Spence Jr. Been there, done that. And now it's time to take on this challenge right here. And so between the patience of myself, the understanding of my dad that Shawn ain't going to fight nobody other than Terence Crawford whenever that time comes, to TGB and Top Rank finally making a smart decision for Terence and the best decision they can make for me. We got a great fight for y'all happening.
So it's been no secret on this channel that I feel, and you can't really blame him, that Al Heyman has been keeping his 147-pound welterweights in-house because, you know, if you can make good fights in-house, like Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence, Danny Garcia versus Errol Spence, Danny Garcia versus Thurman, Shawn Porter versus Thurman, then why fight Terence Crawford, who was on the other side of the street? Now, right now, the 147-pound division, with these guys that I've mentioned, they fought each other, except for not fighting Terence Crawford. So what we're going to do is we're going to skim through the press conference here that was a couple of weeks ago. I believe this was the same day as Fury versus Wilder 3. I don't remember, but it was either that weekend or that day. Let's go look at the 147-pound division. Now, if you don't know, Terence Crawford, WBO 147-pound champion, former 140 undisputed champion, former 135-pound champion, is going to be taking on former WBC and IBF champion Shawn Porter. And right now, to me, it is Terence Crawford's toughest fight of his career. It was even acknowledged by Bo Mack, the trainer of Terence Crawford, regarding looking at the resume. Let's go look at the resume. He's 37-0 with 28 KOs. Let's just talk about his last few fights, you know, just recapping for you. Kell Brook, he was stopped. In my opinion, Kell Brook should not be competing at 147 pounds anymore. And either way, by time Terence Crawford got him, Kell Brook, in my opinion, was damaged goods. Aglias Kavalauskas, nice solid win. He was a WBO mandatory. He had the fighting. The Amir Khan fight was a huge, humongous flop. Shouldn't have been on pay-per-view. You know, at that point in time, I'm still kind of trying to figure out, did they really think, meaning Top Rank, that Amir Khan's name really held weight? The Jose Benavidez fight, I really enjoyed that fight. Before the build-up and on paper, I thought that Jose Benavidez was a nice little test for him. Jeff Horn to win the 147-pound title. Jeff Horn coming off of a win. I forgot who he fought before that, but I had covered. Then before that, he had fought Manny Pacquiao. Controversial win, nonetheless, on the cards. In my opinion, he won. Filipino fans will argue you to death, but hey, just my opinion. Don't shoot the messenger. Julius Ndongo. These were 140-pound fights. And let's go look at Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter, arguably one of the best resumes at 147 pounds, and he's made quite a career for himself doing commentary. 31-3-1 with 17 KOs. His last fight was against Sebastian Formella during the pandemic with no fans. Before that, the pay-per-view against Errol Spence, which I really enjoyed the fight, and also the build-up for the fight. In my opinion, he clearly won that fight. Errol Spence clearly won that fight, and Shawn Porter lost. The split decision was a little, yeah. Yordenis Ugas, a lot of people felt that he lost that fight. I need to go watch that fight again. because if I'm correct from my post-fight video, I felt that Yordenis Ugas just didn't really do enough. The Danny Garcia fight, I predicted that he was going to defeat Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia has issues with pressure fighters. Shawn Porter just clearly outworked him. Adrian Granados, this was a nice solid win at the time. At that time, Adrian Granados wasn't an easy guy to get a clear decision win over. The Andre Berto fight, I was there as media covered that fight. Andre Berto was stopped in round number 9, and in my opinion, I didn't think that Andre Berto, who also in the past has shown to have issues with pressure fighters, succumbed to Shawn Porter's pressure. And the Keith Thurman fight, I don't even want to talk about Keith Thurman. That's just depressing. So the question is, looking at the resume of Terence Crawford, at 147 pounds, you have to say he's the best fighter that he will be fighting at 147 pounds. And I think will be his toughest test between 140 and 147. Some may say it's Postol, but you saw, if you didn't see how he fought Postol, he fought him pretty cautiously, doing a lot of moving around, and I'm hoping that that's going to be the game plan for Shawn Porter, or unless he wants to try to prove himself and stay in the pocket to slug with Shawn Porter, I don't think that's going to be, going to work out too well in his favor. In my opinion, I'm still favoring Terence Crawford 55-45, Shawn Porter. But the biggest question is now is who is next for the winner. Oh, I got to fix that. Hold on. Give me 1 minute. Jump cut. All right, we're back. So we don't know what's going on with Errol Spence. Damn it. We don't know what's going on with Errol Spence just yet, but supposedly, according to social media, he's back in the gym in some capacity. Now, he had a, was it a partial torn retina? Well, anyway, we don't know if he's able to spar or box or take any type of contact. So even though he's back in the gym, still, we have no real timetable for his concern. Yordenis Ugas is pretty pissed that he was ordered to fight Amantis Stanionis, and then he has to fight the winner of Jamal James versus Butayev. But in reality, he wants to fight Errol Spence to unify, but Errol Spence, we don't know when he's coming back. So, of course, he should be able to fight Errol Spence, if Errol Spence is able, to come back, in February, March, or April. But I don't see why he shouldn't want to fight his mandatory or be in this tournament, in my personal opinion, unless he wants to target the winner of Crawford versus Porter in that same time frame, March, April, or May. Virgil Ortiz is creeping up to a WBO title eliminator. You got Jaron Boots Ennis, who's supposed to be taking on Tomas Delorme. And if you really, really look at it, that's the 147-pound division. Those are the real movers and shakers right now in regards to the titles. The main players, and let me go ahead and do this right now. My top 5 147-pounders. Errol Spence, number 1. Terence Crawford, number 2. I have to put Ugas number 3 because he has the championship. Shawn Porter, number 4. Virgil Ortiz, number 5. Now, looking at guys at 140 pounds, Josh Taylor doesn't seem to be like he's going to be moving up. It seems as though maybe Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez may be fighting at 140, and maybe Josh Taylor will stay at 140 for maybe another year or so, depending. Josh Taylor, from my understanding, is going to be fighting Jack Catterall. I don't know if they announced that date yet. That's his WBO mandatory. Then after that, I'm guessing he'll fight Teofimo Lopez, or if they can't get a bigger fight for Terence Crawford. But let's go back to this press conference because I want you to hear what Kenny Porter had to say about them winning Terence Crawford in the past. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe, and T Street Controversy with Fight View 360.
November 20th.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. And Tom, I want to thank you for your cooperation, not only in this event tonight, but this event with the companies that we represent, cooperating. It's only good for boxing. We can do bigger and better matches. That being said, Terence Crawford is the only unified champion sitting on the stage. He unified the 140-pound division. And maybe, just maybe, the reason he didn't fight more top welterweights is because you guys were hiding them because you wouldn't want to put them in with Terence. Maybe,
you heard him.
just maybe.
Hey, Kenny, I want to bring in the trainers before we get to the fighters. Why do you feel this is the right time for Shawn?
I think mainly the reason this is the right time is because Shawn and I are very spiritual, and we pray over everything we do. So, we have no control over when, or where we fight, but we pray and we work on it. And I was just telling somebody yesterday, we had a meeting about Terence Crawford 2 years ago, full-fledged, face-to-face, with people that don't even come out and about face-to-face. We had a meeting about him 2 years ago. So when it finally comes to fruition, it's that time. There's a lot of things I could say about Terence. All of them are great, excellent. I'm, a Terence Crawford fan. But number one, I'm a Shawn Porter fan. But this is the time. Now is the time. It's showtime.
Bowman.
My theory, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think that Al Heyman told him, like, nah, it's not time yet, champ. Nah, we can look at other options. I want to know who this other guy is that, PBC wanted Shawn Porter to fight possibly in-house. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Jamal James or something like that. But it seems as though, that Shawn Porter and his father were really, really pushing for this fight. And one thing we can say about Shawn Porter is I believe him, because I doubted Shawn Porter before years ago where I think it was the Porter-Berto press conference, post-fight press conference, where it was a lot of people wondering, hey, listen, why don't you fight Errol Spence? And pretty much they were saying at the time they were waiting for it to become a bigger fight. And this was before I believe that he won the IBF title, I believe. Errol Spence. Well, anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, I really think that Shawn Porter really, really pushed for this fight because to see a PBC fighter fighting on ESPN Plus, the other platform, you have to think, where was he going to get? And by the way, let's go into the purses. Suppose it was going to go to a purse bid, meaning that if it goes to a purse bid, any promoter could have bid on the fight, and you have promoters lining up saying, we're going to put that fight, bid for that fight, and it's going to happen on our platform. So if any other promoter would have won, they could have put it on their platform. In this case, since Bob Arum and Top Rank have worked together numerous times in the past, especially most recently, Fury versus Wilder 3, they decided, I don't know who, but something tells me that MTK Global has some stake in this, because also, if you didn't know, Terence Crawford is managed by MTK Global and a promotional free agent. So this fight is happening on ESPN Plus pay-per-view only, from my understanding, and you're not going to be able to buy it. Basically, they're cutting out the middleman, to where the cable provider, if they have it on Xfinity, Verizon here in the States, the Dish or whatever, the distributor, cable distributor, gets also a chunk of the check, to where on ESPN Plus, the same as UFC does, I don't know how much they get, meaning the fighters and the promoters, how much they get, or get to keep from the broadcast. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford is supposed to make $6 million guaranteed, and Shawn Porter $4 million guaranteed. Now, some sites that I haven't even heard of before, which I can't believe, saying that the pay-per-view is going to be $50. I wouldn't be surprised if it's $64.99, because Bob Arum has already said he's going to make it cheaper than the traditional pay-per-views have been. I'm not talking about the novelty pay-per-views like Jake Paul fights and stuff. I'm talking about when guys like Errol Spence, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Tank Davis fight. So normally those pay-per-views are between $74.99 and $79.99. I wouldn't be surprised if this one is $69.99, a little bit cheaper. November the 20th is going to be in the MGM Grand Small Room. Let me check. No, the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, November the 20th. And also, November is a pretty hectic month for pay-per-views. And as you can see, we've been having pay-per-views like crazy. Because if you think about it, we got Tank Davis pay-per-view in December. I believe that's the first week of December or so. You got this pay-per-view November the 20th. 2 pay-per-views. I mean, 2 weeks before that, which is coming up about 3 weeks from today. I should have did it the other way. You have November the 6th, Canelo versus Plant, UFC that night as well. So they're really, really testing people's pockets. But if I was to pay for one pay-per-view, a boxing pay-per-view in November, I'm going to be paying for this. You know, Canelo versus Plant, don't get me wrong. I'm not fully writing off Caleb Plant, but Canelo, yeah, you're paying for him. Yeah, it's undisputed. But, you know, this fight means a whole lot more, in my personal opinion. Don't expect for the undercard to be good. Expect somebody like maybe Nico Ali Walsh to be on there. Maybe a Xander Zayas, you know, doubtful. I forgot what the rumor was for the co-feature, you know, or the chief support for the undercard. Let me pull that up really quickly. Shout out to L Dub Boog Williams. He can be relied on. He doesn't seem as though that he's predicting this, that, you know, usually you can really look around and see, you know, who can be in camp and all that. But Isaac Dogbay versus, I'm guessing, Christopher Diaz. Jerry Big Baby Anderson versus, I don't know who this guy is. And which Falco brother is this? Taking on Patrick Volney? Let me go check real quick. Which Falco brother is that? Which one is that? All I got to, there you go. Patrice Volney, or is it Patrick? We got to change that. Esquiva? Oh, Lord, I'm butchering his name. 160-pound WBO contenders. So, yeah, I expect for them to put out some shoulder content coming up soon. You know, I'm really interested, though, in who the winner is going to fight, because right now I'm concerned about some things that Derek James has been saying about Errol Spence on the PBC podcast. And, you know, I'm wondering if Errol Spence is, like, done, you know? I don't want to believe it. Because right now, you know, and then there's also the talk of him moving to 154. You know, we are literally at a point right now where if Errol Spence, remember, he came back from the car accident and fought Danny Garcia. In my opinion, that was an easy fight for him to win. You know, we was only watching that fight to see how he would do after the accident. But against Yordenis Ugas, that's going to be a really, really tough fight for him. You know, and also with Errol Spence having an eye injury, losing out on a Pacquiao fight, that had to be a real gut check too. So in a perfect world, we can see Errol Spence versus Yordenis Ugas in, April, March, April, and May. And then the winner of that fights the winner of Terence Crawford, Shawn Porter sometime next year, unless Errol Spence wants to say, you know what, I'm going for the big money. I'm fighting Terence Crawford next. Then I'll fight Terence Crawford, Shawn Porter winner next. Then I'll fight Yordenis Ugas. But, it's tough. But one good thing to look out for is Virgil Ortiz creeping his way up to a title shot. And, Terence Crawford is definitely going to be ordered to fight him definitely in 2022. Depending if he's still WBO champion or not. But like I said, 55-45, I'm favoring Terence Crawford. I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't be surprised if Shawn Porter pulls it out off of activity, even though some people feel that Terence Crawford is good, man. I'm not taking no credit from him, man, but this is his toughest fight. You can't find nobody on Terence Crawford's record and resume that's going to give him a tougher fight, that gave him a tougher fight than what Shawn Porter can potentially do. We're going to see, though. We're going to be doing a lot more videos on this as time builds up. We're going to try to get somebody to the fight. Take a time out, like the video. Down below, I put some links to the WBC channels app powered by the Vive Network. One for Android, one for Apple, and one for Roku. We're waiting for some Samsung TV information. T Street Controversy with FightView360.com. Please subscribe.